A system is a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network. If you want to understand any sin, you have to understand the systems that govern it. That is a foundational principle in the spirit realm. The same is true of the sin of witchcraft. Anyone can dabble in witchcraft at any time, even unawares, but no one really becomes a bona fide witch in a day. It's always a formative process. Even those who are born into it are primed from young to have their self-concept shaped in such a way as to be agreeable to participating within the system of witchcraft. God led me to begin to explore this process through the movie Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Growing up, I did watch Harry Potter, and my parents never objected to it, but I was generally aware that some people considered it evil because a lot of Africans would say it was, though no one really explained why, beyond the basic knowledge of witchcraft being the movie's core subject matter. With time, I came to learn that though the author of the series claims that the spells in the books are fictional, she studied real texts on alchemy and magic and drew inspiration from those studies in writing the Harry Potter series. The essence of witchcraft is manipulation and control. So regardless of whether the spells in Harry Potter are real, you don't necessarily need real spells to influence a target audience. One of the target audiences of the Harry Potter series and similar franchises is the vulnerable and traumatized child. The child who has been neglected, oppressed, abused, and is understandably discontent within their reality, so they need an escape, another world where they aren't overlooked, abused, and made to feel small. And we can see that Harry Potter is a paragon, the perfect example. In the movie's opening sequence, we can see that Harry is a boy who is orphaned. He's been displaced from his birthright community and placed in the home of family members who lock him in a small room beneath the basement, force him to wait on them hand and foot, verbally abuse him at every opportunity, and neglect to celebrate his milestones. On top of that, Harry, who is mild-mannered, naive, gentle, and unassuming, is constantly pushed aside for his cousin. His cousin, portrayed as piggish, gluttonous, bratty, ungrateful, and mean-spirited, is constantly coddled at Harry's expense. And so Harry, at the arrival of Hagrid, and the revelation of his being a wizard, is in desperate need of an escape. He's in desperate need of a savior, and magic becomes his vindication. When Hagrid arrives on Harry's birthday, he honors him with an exclusive invitation to Hogwarts Academy. He uses magic to enact a silly yet satisfying form of vengeance on the cousin by cursing him with a pig's tail, and takes him to another dimension to prep him for his enrollment into the best school for wizardry and witchcraft in the world. Hagrid takes Harry through a bar, where everyone, including the adults around him, are aware of who he is and are in awe of his presence. Though complete strangers, they make proclamations about his supposed mastery of wizardry, likely due to the reputation of his parents, who were prolific wizards before him. And to top it all off, Hagrid yells, "See, Harry, you're famous," in affirmation. In this alternate dimension, Harry says, "I don't have any money," when Hagrid whisks him by busy shops with the necessary school supplies, for example, wands, magic brooms, and intriguing gadgets. Then suddenly, Hagrid points at a large and looming bank, and in the matter of a second, Harry goes from being broke to being the recipient of a generous inheritance. In all of this, Harry is the neglected child. He is living their fantasy. And it's in this that the insidious nature of our children's films and franchises are laid out. Because the reality is that many of these children, I'd venture to say most, won't watch this and go online looking for real spells. However, the seed will have already been planted. An idea, a particular way of thinking in regards to solving life's problems. That if somehow they were able to access unique knowledge and mystical power, they would be great. In fact, they're already somebody great. They just don't know it yet. So let's say this child grows into an adult and they're facing difficulties. They already have self esteem issues and are walking around with a deficit formed in their childhood that hasn't been addressed. They see themselves as misunderstood, depressed, victimized, inconsequential. They feel powerless within their circumstance. They want a solution to their problems, and something inside of them yearns to be seen, to be somebody in life, maybe even to be famous. And so they go searching, probably on the internet, and inevitably they come across manifestation theology and other forms of New Age mysticism. It starts small at first, but they realize that some of the things they're trying are actually working for them. They believe they're in control, unaware that a spirit has introduced itself and, with permission, has assumed the wheel of their lives. But they finally feel like they have agency. They've gotten an invitation to Hogwarts Academy, and so they go down the rabbit hole. Tarot readings and astral signs to know the future and to find their perfect match, meditations and chants to curate outcomes, drugs to open up their mind and explore the greatness within, love spells to attract their crush, yoga for fitness with a side of Kundalini style spiritual awakening, special candles to burn to attract wealth, an evil eye to stave off envy, and perhaps a ritual to get back at anyone who crosses them. It goes on, and can always get deeper and far, far darker than can be captured in a brief YouTube video. But regardless of whether they make the connection to the fantasies of their childhood, and regardless of how benign all these things I've mentioned may seem on the surface, they've evolved into the witches and wizards that they envied as children. The priming I mentioned earlier, that's necessary in the process of entering into the system of witchcraft, to yearn to assume control and have power without having to be subject to a higher authority. It began in their formative years. In fact, this desire that they have to be their own God started in their flesh nature before they were ever born. But their entertainment was the means by which it was guided. In exploring the stories told to us in our entertainment, we can get a rudimentary understanding of the system of witchcraft from its very beginning. If the system of witchcraft could be a high-rise building, the first floor, the foundation, is always some sort of trauma or deficit, which, if unaddressed, a person is then made vulnerable and seduced into joining the system as a means of escape. They're always told, the greatness is already inside of you. You have only to believe. From the nostalgic rhetoric of Walt Disney to Venus Legacy commercials, it's all the same ideology, the same response to a deficit. The greatness is already inside of you. You have only to believe. As Christians, we learn that those who place their trust in men, even in themselves, are cursed, that there is no wealth great enough to be a person's absolute security. No matter how wealthy you think you are, there's always a challenge that can present itself with a solution that is too expensive. That's life. No matter how beautiful, you grow old. No matter how smart, you'll come across a problem that's beyond natural intelligence. And no matter how high up you go in witchcraft, remember, there's always someone who can and will outrank you, who's willing to go farther and sacrifice more, even if it's just to destroy you. So who do you turn to then? The purpose in this video is to explore the reality of witchcraft as a system and to think critically about how entertainment plays a role in that system, a key role. It helps us to stay aware of how we are being primed to think. Though watching movies seems passive, there is an active exchange happening as we watch. And I think it's even more important to pay attention to this when we're dealing with entertainment targeted at children, because they're very malleable and don't have the mental defenses that adults do to accept or reject the foundational ideologies coming from their entertainment when forming their self-concept. I used Harry Potter as one example in this video, but there are many examples of this out there. All we can do is ask God for discernment, guard our children, and put in the work to address our own deficits so we don't fall victim to seductive ideologies that will only do us harm in the end.